Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if a computer could actually understand what is going on inside someone's head during therapy? It sounds like science fiction, right? But what if there was a way to use powerful AI, like those big language models you might have heard about, to create a map of a person's inner world based on their therapy sessions? That is exactly what a new study set out to explore. They wanted to see if they could use these AI tools to build personalized networks from therapy transcripts to help understand the person better and plan their treatment. Think of therapy as a really complex conversation, right? Usually, to understand someone's inner world deeply, psychologists need a lot of information collected over time, like filling out tons of surveys. This can be a lot of work for everyone involved. This research asked a big question. Could we use AI to automatically dig through those therapy session transcripts and build a personalized map or network of what is going on with a person? The scientists behind this study were really interested in something called personalized treatment. Basically, the idea is that everyone is different, so treatment should be tailored to the individual. One way therapists do this is by looking at a person's network. This isn't a social network like Facebook, but more like a map of how different thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected for that specific person. For example, maybe feeling down, one point on the map leads to not wanting to see friends, another point, which then makes you feel more down. By understanding these connections, therapists can target the most influential points in the network to help someone get better. The problem is, getting the data to build these detailed personal networks statistically is tough. It requires a lot of repeated measurements, like filling out surveys many times. Plus, these traditional methods often look at the same set of issues for everyone, even though we know people have totally unique struggles. So, the researchers thought, what if we could use large language models, or LLMs, which are basically super smart AI that understand and generate human language, to do this job? They wanted to see if LLMs could analyze therapy session transcripts and create these personalized networks automatically. So, how did they actually do this with AI? It was a multi-step process. First, they took records of real therapy sessions and broke them down into individual spoken parts, called utterances. They had human experts carefully read through about 8,000 of these spoken parts. Their job was to figure out if each one contained something clinically important, like a concern about their life or a therapy goal. If it did, they also had to label what dimension of psychological functioning it related to, like feelings, thoughts, or sense of self. Think of this as teaching the AI what to look for by showing it examples. Then came the AI part, broken into 3 main stages. The first stage was all about identifying and classifying those clinically relevant parts. They used a powerful LLM, a specific one called Llama 3.1-70B instruct, and gave it prompts, which are like instructions to tell it what to look for. They even experimented with giving it a few examples of good annotations to help it learn better. The second stage was where things got really interesting, clustering. Imagine you have a bunch of related ideas from the therapy session. The AI had to group these similar ideas into broader, more meaningful themes or clusters. For example, lots of different worries might be clustered under a theme like anxiety about the future. They tried different ways to prompt the AI to do this clustering, trying to find the best approach. They had humans evaluate the themes the AI came up with, looking at how clinically relevant, new, and useful they were. This helped them refine the AI's approach. The final stage was about connecting these themes. Once the AI had identified the key themes, it had to figure out how they were linked. For instance, does avoiding difficult conversations tend to lead to increased relationship conflict? They used a clever trick here, using an ensemble of different AI models or prompts to make a more reliable decision about these connections. This is like asking a few different experts to weigh in before making a final judgment. They then took the full therapy transcripts and ran this whole pipeline to generate personalized networks for each session and each participant. The goal was to see if these AI-generated networks actually made sense and reflected what was happening in the therapy. So, what did they find? Well, the AI was pretty good at identifying the important bits from the therapy sessions. It correctly identified over 90% of the clinically relevant parts, which is a really strong start. When it came to grouping those parts into themes, the AI's work was rated quite well by the human evaluators. They found the themes to be generally clinically relevant, novel, and useful for understanding what was going on. The really cool part was looking at the actual networks the AI created for specific participants. They showed examples for 2 clients, P11 and P13. For P11, whose main issue was insecurity in romantic relationships and fear of abandonment. The network showed themes like difficulty expressing and regulating emotions, and the tension between desiring connection while fearing rejection. Over time, as therapy progressed, the network showed how these themes evolved, with P11 starting to accept uncertainty and use values to guide decision. For P13, who struggled with emotional intimacy in her relationship, the networks highlighted themes like all or nothing thinking and avoidance of distressing situations. As therapy progressed, the network showed P13 becoming more authentic, letting go of control, and becoming more flexible. Even though some struggles continued, the networks also showed new themes like self-compassion and acceptance of imperfection emerging. These session-level networks seem to line up really well with the actual clinical notes and data from the original study. It suggests that the AI was able to capture the essence of what was happening in therapy and create a meaningful representation of it for each person. So, what does this all mean? The study basically showed that it is possible, as a proof of concept, to use AI to automatically generate these personalized networks from therapy session transcripts. This could be a really big deal because right now, creating these detailed personal maps often requires a lot of data and complex statistical work that isn't always practical. The researchers highlighted several advantages of this AI approach. First, it is easily scalable. All you need is a recording of a therapy session compared to traditional methods that require lots of surveys. This is much easier to implement. Second, this AI approach is more of a bottom-up way of understanding a person. It starts with what the person actually says in therapy and builds the network from there, which means it is more likely to capture unique, personal struggles that might not be covered in standard questionnaires. They even suggested that these AI-generated networks could be super helpful for clinicians. They could be used to provide post-session feedback to therapists, acting like a second pair of eyes to help them remember or identify key themes their client brought up. They could also be a valuable tool for training new therapists, helping them practice and refine their case conceptualization skills. However, it is important to talk about the limitations because no study is perfect, right? One of the biggest challenges they noted was that human experts didn't always agree on how good the AI's network constructions were, especially on subjective measures like how insightful or novel the themes were. This means that while the AI might be consistent in its output, humans might interpret it differently. The study also used only one type of LLM. It is possible that using other AI models might produce different results. And of course, LLMs can sometimes hallucinate, meaning they can make things up or produce biased, inconsistent outputs. The researchers did try to reduce this by using specific settings and structured prompts, but it is still something to be aware of. They stressed that these networks should be seen as hypotheses, generating tools rather than absolute truths. Another key limitation is that the study used a relatively small dataset from one study. To really know if this works broadly, they'd need to test it on a much larger and more diverse group of people. Also, the AI couldn't see or hear the nonverbal cues like body language or tone of voice, which are super important in therapy. This is another reason why these AI networks are best used as a tool to support, not replace, human judgment. So, what is my take on this? It is incredibly exciting to see how AI is being used to tackle complex problems in psychology. The idea of using LLMs to help personalize therapy is full of promise. It could make personalized treatment more accessible and efficient. The fact that the AI could generate networks that seem to reflect the client's journey, like in the examples of P11 and P13, is really compelling. This study is a strong proof of concept, meaning it shows the idea is possible and worth exploring further. The biggest hurdle going forward will be proving that these AI-generated networks actually improve treatment outcomes. Does using them lead to better results for people in therapy compared to traditional methods or not using them at all? That is the million-dollar question and the focus of future research. We also need to see how these tools perform in the real world, with different types of clients and therapists, and how we can best integrate them into clinical practice without losing the essential human element of therapy. What do you think about using AI in therapy? Let me know in the comments below if you found this breakdown helpful. Please give this video a like and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more dives into the fascinating world of psychology. See you next time.